Well done on this great article that is exciting enough to get your heart racing. With a rating of 9.7 out of 10. The main character is very clever, always ready to fight back, and the story is fast-paced and exciting. The main text is performed right away. My father came back from a business trip with a girl, and he told me to be nice to her, but the next day, she was crying and telling my brother that I was bullying her. She asked him to support her. My brother and I looked at each other, and he held her arm to stop her from getting away. I, on the other hand, didn't hesitate to slap my face. How dare that daughter of an unmarried mother be so arrogant? What a lack of upbringing. My father came back from a business trip, and before he left, he called to say that he wanted to bring us a gift. My brother and I looked at each other, feeling like we were laughing at her. A man who doesn't care about family, who has never been a father, would give us a gift without thinking. When I saw the girl with the weak body and sad face next to my father, I felt like laughing at her. This is an illegitimate daughter who has been raised outside for 18 years, and it is indeed a big gift. My father looked at me with a frown and said, "Your sister has been living without a name for 18 years. Now it's time for her to recognize her family. Amelia, you and your sister have to get along with each other." My hands clenched on the table as I looked at the girl in front of me. She looked just like the murderer who killed my mother. My brother beside me coughed softly, and I looked at him. His eyes showed that he was ready to attack me. I took a step forward and slapped the girl hard across the face. Because I had taken karate, the slap was loud and vicious, slapping the girl straight to the ground. I looked at her with disdain and said, "A child born to a mistress, and you expect me to take good care of her? The fact that I gave her some scraps of cold food is already a great favor. She's a traitor and a low-class person, and she thinks she's my equal?" I made the girl feel so embarrassed that she covered her face and sat on the ground crying. Before my dad could get angry, my brother pushed me to the ground and slapped me. My brother looked at me angrily and said, "Amelia, why did you speak to your father like that? What disrespect." I got down on the ground and looked at my brother with a determined face. My father, however, looked very happy with how my brother was acting. He patted his brother on the shoulder and then looked at me with a cold look on his face. "To make up for it, I have already changed all the shares to Chloe. This is the last time I will do this. If you try to bully Chloe again, I will never forgive you." After that, my dad just left. Chloe jumped up from the ground, covered her red and swollen cheeks, looked at me angrily, and followed her dad. When they left, my brother tried to help me, but I slapped his hand away and stood up quickly on my own. My brother looked at my body and asked, "Was that push on you just now painful?" I waved my hands as I straightened my clothes. "It's fine," I said. "The carpet is so thick that I'm not hurt at all. On the contrary, it's that Chloe, sitting on her bottom on the hard floor, is afraid her tailbone will crack." Brother laughed out loud. The housekeeper of the house invited us to enjoy afternoon tea. The sunlight on a spring afternoon was warm and bright, and when my brother picked up his coffee cup and took a light sip, he saw Chloe, who was circling her father on the second floor. A look of contempt flashed across his handsome face. The daughter of a mistress, a woman who only has relationships with men, is also worthy of taking my mother's shares? I smiled and said quietly, "Brother, you have to learn to be patient. After all, it'll take a lot of effort on your part to make her disappear completely." After that, we smiled at each other and carried on enjoying the peace before the storm. My brother Leo and I were born from the same mother. Our family was one of the most powerful in New York City before it declined. My mother was the only daughter in the family, but she met a bad man and fell for my father, who was a poor boy. My father, who was dependent on his wife's family business, had an affair when she was really sick. He not only made my grandfather angry, but he also stole the property she left us and gave it to his mistress. Luckily, the mistress died early, leaving only Chloe, the illegitimate daughter. We had planned to look after father and Chloe, the two dogs, after my brother took charge of Sterling Group. I didn't realize that my father was so impatient that he brought Chloe back home before she could get on her feet. This time, although the plan needed to be more advanced, my brother and I promised to take back everything that belonged to us. It took some planning to deal with this. Chloe is a bit silly. She thinks she's the main character in the story and that everyone should love her no matter what. So, when her brother shows her favor, she is not at all cautious, but really enjoys it. After the Sterling Group made a lot of money from the capital of her mother's family, her father thought he had achieved success and started to slowly become less involved in running the company. Recently, my brother has taken charge of the company and is set to become its new leader, a position that has earned him recognition from New York's elite. In the past, it was my brother and I who went to all the big parties, and when Chloe saw me in my beautiful evening dresses and jewelry, she was full of envy and jealousy, so she flattered her brother and said she wanted to go too. I was furious, which made Chloe even more determined to take my place. In the end, it was my father who had to step in and tell me off for not knowing how to make my sister feel sorry for me. He also had the servants give Chloe all the dresses and jewelry they had prepared for me. Chloe thought she had won, and like a rooster that has just won a fight, she took her brother's arm. I, on the other hand, felt sorry for my brother and was sad. Chloe is from the city, but even though her face is similar to mine, she can't learn the manners I learned as a child. She also doesn't know how to walk, eat or dance. She doesn't know anything about any of these. Who is she to compete with me? 2 hours later, my best friend Sophia messaged me to mess with me. She said, "Amelia, is your brother crazy? Why did he bring out that daughter of your family who was born outside of wedlock? She can't do anything and just stepped on my foot while dancing." I looked at the message on my phone and laughed. I could easily imagine Chloe's dilemma. She was clumsy and overwhelmed. At 11 o'clock at night, my brother came home with Chloe. As soon as I walked in the door, Chloe looked at me in a way that made me uncomfortable. I looked innocent. My brother patted my shoulder, clearly proud of himself. Our group chat for rich kids had got way too big tonight. Everyone already knew that I did not get on with this sister who was born out of wedlock, and they did not avoid me when they made fun of her. I quickly looked at the messages in the group, and as I thought, Chloe was making a fool of herself as soon as she arrived at the party. She spoke to people who were nice, but then they just went away after they had said hello. I secretly laughed. That's ridiculous. You're a father figure to an illegitimate daughter. How can you expect those young ladies to be friendly towards you? When it came to the ball, Chloe was left on the dance floor by herself after her brother was invited by a business partner to discuss a project in a private room. Chloe was left on the dance floor by herself. She couldn't dance, so she stepped on the feet of almost every male partner she danced with. She even stepped on my best friend Sophia's foot when she was switching partners. Sophia said, "If you can't fit in, don't force your way in. It'll just make you look silly." Chloe's eyes went red. When her brother came back, she didn't dare to complain, because she was afraid that he would think her performance was too poor and would not bring her to the party next time. New York has so many people that it's hard to create a new character. Those boring young masters and young ladies were laughed at, so they started to become more interesting. By the time she went to bed at night, Chloe's identity had been checked out. The next day at school, Chloe got up early and sat at the dining room table wearing light makeup. I hurried into the cafeteria and saw my brother thoughtfully peeling an orange for Chloe. Chloe took it and ate a petal, so sour that she almost lost control of her expression. I made myself laugh, and when I saw my brother look away, I saw a smile on his face that showed he was very proud of himself. After dinner, the driver opened the door and drove Chloe and me to school. My father had brought Chloe to our school to make it up to her, told her to study hard, and then went to the clubhouse to have some fun. The partition of the limousine slowly rose, and Chloe looked at me in a way that was quite sexy. Yesterday I went to a party, and the young ladies of the rich and powerful families liked me so much that they all rushed to talk to me. So many young masters asked me to dance. But this is a treatment that you can't enjoy, sister, right? I looked at the roof of the car and took out a copy of today's French newspaper to read. My mother studied design in France when she was young, so she really wanted me to learn French too. She insisted that I read the French newspaper every day. Eventually, the housekeeper started putting French newspapers in the car every day. Chloe looked at me like this, and not to be outdone, she also picked up the newspaper on the seat and read it, even though she couldn't understand it. I snorted, but didn't say anything to be sarcastic. When we arrived at the classroom, I sat down again and watched Chloe introduce herself with a big smile. After they had all introduced themselves, the teacher helped her to a seat. In the classroom, the only seat that wasn't taken was the one next to Ethan. The teacher was a little unsure, thinking about whether to move a new desk. Ethan is my fiancé and Chloe is the illegitimate daughter of the Sterling family. As with most idol dramas, if the two of them got together it would be a big deal. Chloe knew who Ethan was and immediately offered to sit with him. The teacher looked at me in a way that made it clear she was waiting for my opinion, but when I didn't say anything, she just nodded. The other students saw Chloe's eager-to-be disgusting posture, and felt a bit disgusted too. I looked calm, took out my notebook and started to review, letting Chloe pester Ethan. Ethan, who was usually cold, was surprisingly patient with Chloe. After a morning, Chloe had started calling Ethan Ethan's brother. Sophia looked at me as I went about my business. At first, she seemed a little anxious for me, but then she looked thoughtful. I was a turtle for 2 weeks. Then, for a group assignment in economics, Chloe took my place and insisted on working with Ethan. I sneered, stood up, grabbed Chloe's ponytail, and dragged her into the bathroom. The other students were watching the fun, and a few of the girls I was close with even quietly got up and stopped a couple of boys who wanted to get involved. I chose a cubicle that wasn't cleaned and put Chloe in it on purpose. Chloe shouted, "Amelia, you're just complaining. What if Ethan's brother comes looking for you?" I sneered and raised my hand to slap Chloe. "Brother Ethan? They called really close, didn't they? As you were born from that horrible mother of yours, you clearly have it in you to be a mistress." Chloe tried to fight back, but I kicked her so hard she sat down on the toilet in the cubicle, her school uniform instantly getting wet. "My brother isn't here at the moment, so it's good that I'm here to teach you what it means to be part of a powerful family." Sophia picked up the half-full rubbish bin with a disgusted look on her face and was just about to throw it on Chloe when Ethan, who had arrived just in time, stopped her. "Amelia, stop holding your sister." I turned around to see Ethan arrive late. He was wearing a suit and he had his student council president's job tag on his chest. Chloe immediately burst into tears when she saw him. Ethan helped her up, and then angrily looked at me. "I didn't realize you were so jealous. I just saw that Chloe had had a difficult life for 18 years and felt sorry for her, but you made things hard for her. I'm really disappointed in you. If there's a next time, I think it'd be better to marry Chloe instead of marrying a woman who's not a very nice person like you." After that, Ethan helped Chloe leave the bathroom, leaving Sophia and me. On her way out, Chloe looked back at me with a look of satisfaction on her face. I did what she wanted, putting on a brave face. When the two of them were no longer there, Sophia and I breathed a sigh of relief. Sophia stood up and, smiling, said, "Chloe got a lot of dirt on her after you kicked her into the toilet just now." Ethan was so close to her that his expensive suit must have got dirty too. I imagined that and felt sick. "Next time you beat her, change to a cleaner place. It's disgusting." Chloe ended up working with Ethan to finish her economics homework. However, the teacher gave Chloe a low grade because he could see that the whole assignment was done by Ethan and Chloe was just copying him. The blonde economics professor looked upset when he saw Ethan on the podium. He said to Ethan, "Ethan, you and Amelia worked well together before. Why don't you work together again? You're in a very bad group now and can't keep up with your thinking at all." Chloe couldn't understand what the professor was saying because he was speaking French. She stood next to Ethan, looking confused. The young ladies and gentlemen on stage all burst out laughing and turned to look at me sitting in the last row. I didn't show any emotion, like it wasn't anything I needed to worry about. Ethan was shocked and said sorry in French. "I'm sorry, I made a mistake on this assignment." The teacher looked at Chloe, who was looking unhappy next to him, sighed and waved them away. Sophia was sitting in the first row and saw that the teacher gave Chloe the lowest grade. She muttered in a low voice, "What's wrong with kids nowadays? If you don't like a capable partner, you have to find a pretty vase." Sophia laughed out loud. Chloe apologized to Ethan off stage, looking guilty, but he rubbed her hair and gently comforted her. Chloe has been showing a lot of interest in Ethan since she started at this school. She doesn't do her homework after school, so she goes into the kitchen and bakes cookies for Ethan. My school is international, but the school administration is very strict about how well students do. Chloe's grades were even lower than those of the other students, who were not as good as her classmates, and she didn't pay attention to her classes after coming to school. Her grades are even worse than those of the guy who skips class and races his car during the week. As the bad guy, of course I had to share this kind of thing with everyone. 5 minutes later, a report card with a mosaic background appeared on the school's anonymous forum. The post attracted a lot of attention as soon as it was sent out because the scores were very low. Most of the sons and daughters of Hai Cheng's powerful families knew each other. Sophia let the wind out on purpose. Soon, people realized that the owner of the report card was Chloe, the illegitimate daughter of the Sterling family. Another person immediately posted the report card of the first person in my grade in the comments section. "The Sterling family is the same, but the gap is very big. Why is that?" An illegitimate daughter is an illegitimate daughter, and even if she's as smart as the real Missy, that doesn't change anything. I heard that she was sitting with Ethan at the same table, and that even caused Ethan's grades to drop. Ethan did very badly in his economics group work to bring her, a beginner, and this time his final ranking has dropped to the lowest level of the grade. I smiled as I watched the comments appear. The report cards were sent to each student by email. Chloe got her report card and went back to that post, running to confront me with red eyes. "Amelia, why did you laugh at me?" And posting my grades online. The other students stopped writing and looked at me. I looked at her, raised my eyebrows and smiled. "You're not allowed to talk about your poor grades? If you have time to come and confront me, why don't you focus your mind on your studies and not just surround yourself with men all day?" Chloe was angry, but she didn't know what to say. Ethan came over to comfort her. She immediately leaned on his shoulder and cried softly. I said in a secret way, "It's really exactly like your mum who's a mistress. A little beast born of a cheap bastard." Chloe violently pulled away from Ethan's hand, turned around, and picked up the knife on the table. She was about to slash at my face. Ethan moved faster, grabbing the art knife and throwing it to the floor. Chloe looked at Ethan in surprise, only to see him smashing the tablet I had on the table without changing his face. "I told you, there won't be a next time. You and Chloe are like sisters, and it really disappoints me that you insulted her like that. Amelia, it's time to end your marriage to me." Ethan finished with a frosty face, pulled Chloe and turned around. Chloe, shocked by this sudden win, stood still and followed him away. News that Ethan was taking his daughter away from the Sterling family quickly reached home. Father hurried back from the clubhouse and went to the Astor house to find out the news. Mrs. Astor smiled and politely told the servant behind her to bring her husband some tea. "It's true that we, Ethan, don't really like the first lady of the Sterling family. However, the second young lady from the Sterling family is gentle and virtuous, and I really like her." Now my father could relax and enjoy himself. And Chloe, proud of her father's news, took a few of her followers to Fifth Avenue to go shopping. I was having afternoon tea in the garden when my brother joined me. He told me off for peeling grapefruit skins. "Next time, if you scold her to take it easy, she might use that art knife on your face." "Ethan," I said angrily, "when I see her, I think of her horrible mother. I just can't help it." My brother started to move suddenly. I continued, "At that time, my mom was in a bad way, and it was hard to find someone who could give her a new kidney, but that woman took it from her. We begged that old man and the doctor, on our knees, but he said that the woman was carrying his child, so she needed to have this kidney transplant. In the end, they killed my mom, but the bitch was fine. She had a son and even tried to go to the Sterling family. A schoolgirl who was only able to escape the mountains because of my mom's money, but who then betrayed her trust and got into my dad's bed, really deserves to die." My brother gave me a peeled grapefruit and said in a kind voice, "At least now, she and her son have been killed in a car accident that we caused. With only Chloe and the old man left, it's a lot easier." Mrs. Astor spent the weekend welcoming guests from far and wide to announce the engagement of Ethan and Chloe. Before the dinner party, Chloe was very happy as she chose the dresses sent by the brand. When she saw me coming down the stairs with a sad face, she smiled and said, "Sister is here. Today is Ethan's engagement day, and I would love your help picking out a dress." I let out a sneer. While nobody was around, I copied the tape measure on the table and tied her up. Chloe had been on a long-term diet to maintain her delicate image, and now she was no match for me at all. I looked into her terrified eyes and smiled as I examined her. "You're quite good at making me angry. How about I pull out your tongue and give it to me? Okay?" Chloe looked at her brother, who was standing behind me, and her face showed that she was scared. My brother saw Chloe and I fighting and separated us, looking very angry at me. "Amelia, you don't know that your sister is going to get engaged to Ethan soon, do you? You didn't take advantage of the opportunity yourself, so you go and get jealous of your sister," I shouted, my eyes red with anger. "I'm the first lady of the Sterling family. You have a real sister who is also your mother's daughter. Why are you taking her side?" My brother hit me across the face and said angrily, "What do you mean, born of the same mother? As long as they are my father's children, they are my children. I don't treat things right. You disappoint me too much." At that moment, the bodyguards on the side moved forward and held me down. I was forced to kneel on the ground and could only hear my brother's cold voice. "You should not go to the reception today. You should stay in the basement and think about the things you have done wrong. When you realize your mistakes, Come out again." Just before I was taken away, I looked up and saw my dad looking happy upstairs. As I was glowing, I looked down quickly to hide the angry look on my face. My brother locked me in the basement, but he didn't take my mobile phone. I watched the live video Sophia sent me. Mrs. Astor was holding Chloe's hand and smiling. Ethan and Chloe were looking deeply into each other's eyes, and from the angle of the hidden camera, it looked like they were showing some affection. I locked my phone with a frown and walked to the basement utility room. I had usually lived in the basement for most of the year after my mother died. My brother was sent to boarding school at the time, and I was left alone in the villa when I was 8. I had to watch my father bring different women home, night after night. I had bad dreams about my mother's death, often waking up in the middle of the night crying, disturbing my father and being thrown into the basement. The basement was full of my mother's things, and while it might have seemed strange to others, it felt warm and cozy to me. I opened the door to the closet in the utility room and lay down on my mother's old clothes, which smelled cool and ethereal. I slept really well for the first time in months. I don't know how long it took, but the closet door was opened. I tried to get up, but my brother picked me up and held me in his body. "Chloe is spending the night at Astor's. The old thing is prowling around the clubhouse again. But don't worry." I fell asleep peacefully in his arms. The next day, I woke up at noon. I went downstairs to eat and my brother gave me a wooden box. I opened it and found a pair of old and beautiful jade bracelets. I immediately realized that they were heirlooms from the Astor family. I looked up at my brother. My brother calmly explained, "Last night, Aunt Astor gave Chloe a fake bracelet, saying it was a family heirloom, just to make it seem real. Then she called me to the Buddha Hall and said that you were the one she recognized as her daughter-in-law and asked me to bring this real one back to you." I picked up the bracelet and saw that there was a black credit card pressed underneath. My brother then said, "This one below is from Ethan. He said he was worried you might think he was pretending, so he gave you all his assets in his name to show you how much he cared." I laughed out loud, picked up the box and thanked my brother, then started eating with my chopsticks. Chloe didn't get home until mid-afternoon. I was arranging flowers in a vase on the living room table when she came over to me. She was wearing a long sleeveless dress and a fake bracelet. She smiled at me and said, "Sister is really in a good mood. Roses represent love, and it doesn't seem right to use them when your sister has just lost her love so painfully, does it?" I took the flower from her hand and said, "This is a rose, you idiot." After that, I left Chloe, who looked upset, and went straight up the stairs. I upset Chloe because she was new to the Sterling household and was very protective of my mother. To make her trust her brother more and feel less guarded, I had to act like the one who sang blackface. Later, I hit her to turn her against me. I wanted her to approach Ethan for revenge and get engaged to him. Now that I had achieved my goal, there was no need to keep trying to please her. I went to school like normal, but not as many people complimented me. Some of the younger people from the smaller families saw that I was no longer popular and immediately started talking to Chloe. The rest of the young masters and young ladies from the top families carried on joking and laughing with me like normal. After all, they don't care about putting themselves down to please an illegitimate daughter. So even though Chloe was engaged to Ethan, they still treated her differently. And so the days went by until high school graduation. On prom night, Ethan got down on one knee and proposed to Chloe. I sat on the stage in a smart suit and watched as they became the center of attention. Chloe was moved to tears and nodded her head. She was just about to put on the ring when the Sterling family's driver suddenly broke down the door and shouted, looking worried, Missy, it's not good. Master, he fainted in the clubhouse." The crowd watching the scene suddenly got very excited. Those who knew what was going on started sharing the inside story with people who didn't know. Chloe's father is greedy for money and sex, and has been spending time at the clubhouse for several years in a row without coming home. "Really? How do you know?" "Our family has shares in that club, and he's a very important client of ours. Chloe's mom is a student sponsored by his ex-wife, and the two have been hooking up for a long time." Chloe's face went blue when she heard this, but when she saw Ethan beside her, who also looked upset, she quickly smiled and said, "Ethan, don't listen to them. Dad must have fainted because he went out to meet people. I'll go and see what's happened now." Chloe left the stage in a mess, following the driver to rush to the hospital to see the old thing. I looked at Ethan on stage. With a slight smile, I raised my glass to him and then drank. The club that old thing used to go to, which I had secretly taken control of most of the shares of, was now full of almost all of my people. So, Adding something to the wine he often drank was still very easy. My brother was away on a business trip and I was out, so Chloe was left alone and keen to clean up the old man's mess. Aunt Astor heard about this and called Chloe. She told her that the Astor family has always been well respected and that they would never accept their eldest daughter marrying an illegitimate daughter. If her father gives her such bad news again, she will have to think very carefully about whether she can still marry Ethan. Chloe is very nervous. She had worked really hard to get into the Astor family. To be good enough for Ethan, she didn't go abroad to study. Instead, she chose to stay in New York and go to a university that wasn't that great. She could never give up her future because of her father. He was always drinking too much alcohol and having sex. So when the old thing woke up, Chloe was the first to rush into the hospital room and told him not to go to the clubhouse anymore. My father looked at the daughter he had raised away from the family and laughed. "What's the matter, Chloe? Do you think you can come and boss your old man around just because you're part of the Astor family?" Chloe clenched her fists and tried to look happy. "Dad, I'm going to marry my brother Ethan soon. Please wait a few more months, can you? My father has always been treated like a king in the clubhouse. Everyone there obeys him, so how could he listen to these words that disobeyed him?" There was a loud bang. The glass on the bed next to my father broke, sending small pieces of it flying at Chloe's feet. One of these pieces of glass cut her foot. "Leave, you're a sneaky white-eyed wolf. It's not your business." Chloe was kicked out of the hospital room. Outside the door, a young girl with heavy makeup saw her come out and smiled gently as she walked in. Soon, the sound of the girl's breathing and the man's gasping for air could be heard throughout the ward. Chloe closed her eyes, put on a brave face, and said to herself, "I want to buy something from you. Yes, it's the kind that can make people die without them even realizing." Chloe said this and then quickly took her bag from the seat next to her. She left the hospital. I was in the office of the president of Sterling Group. I could hear Chloe's phone call and the sound of a bug in her bag. My brother was sitting in a chair having a cup of tea. We looked at each other and smiled. We had been waiting for nearly 3 years, and now, finally, we could catch him. 2 months later, the president of the Sterling Group died of a brain hemorrhage, leaving a huge fortune to his 3 grown-up children. Surprisingly, the will says that he will have an equal share of the company, with half going to his brother Leo and the other half to Chloe. Media and gossip websites have been speculating about which house will be the main one out of the brother and sister. Some say it will be the illegitimate daughter, who will catch up. Others say it will be the eldest son of the Sterling family and the illegitimate daughter of the relationship, who are very close. They should join forces to deal with their own sister. At this important moment, someone who used to work for Sterling Group spoke up about the company not paying its taxes and using public money wrongly. They asked the IRS to investigate the company, which is one of the biggest taxpayers in New York City, and immediately stopped the company's building being used. The company's stock price went up and down a lot, waiting for the evidence to be found out to cause a big fall. Sterling Group was worried. At this important moment, I disappeared. This is about what they want to do themselves. Chloe is worried too. She looked at her equally anxious brother and said, worriedly, "Brother, think of a way. Our family's property can't get smaller just when it arrives." Her brother also had a lot of headaches. "I don't have enough shares to control the company, and I'm pretty passive now." Chloe stopped for a moment. She knew that if she gave her shares to her brother, he would have 80% of the shares in Sterling Group and have complete control. She didn't want to give up, but she also couldn't make things better and save the company. When she was unsure, she felt a warm pair of hands on her shoulders. Ethan's calm voice said, "Chloe, please sign the contract for the voluntary gift of equity and help your brother during this hard time. You know your brother, and he won't hurt you. Even if he fails, the Astor family will always support you." Chloe was embraced in his arms. She looked a little worried, but then her tense body relaxed a little. "Okay, I trust my brother. I'll sign the contract." Then she turned around, put her arms around Ethan's neck and smiled. "And if that doesn't work, Ethan can support me for the rest of my life." Ethan smiled, a rare thing for him, and said, "Of course, my baby." Chloe took 3 days to complete all the legal tasks. These included transferring all the shares that her father had left her in his will to Leo, and giving back the shares that had originally belonged to our mother. Ethan wanted to share Chloe's happiness and pain, so he asked his mother to organize a big 19th birthday party for Chloe at the Astor family's manor. Chloe, who is engaged to Ethan, is in the news. You can find her in the entertainment sections of New York newspapers. She was so touched that her father gave her a whole villa full of antiques to share with Ethan. Some of these antiques are worth a lot of money. For a while, the media celebrated their undying love for each other. I was sitting in the office of the R&D department, watching Chloe on TV, and I turned off the TV without saying anything. The head of the R&D department next to me looked at me like he was worried. I said in a cold voice, "Let's test the new product one more time. This time, the product has to be perfect before the company starts selling it again. I've worked hard for all of you during this period of time, and I'm sure I won't treat you badly in my year-end bonus." The tax office looked into it, but they couldn't find any mistakes in Sterling Group's accounts. In the end, the ex-employee decided to turn himself in. He said that he had taken out forged evidence to make the company look guilty because he was upset after being fired. Sterling Group called the police straight away. They said that they would use the legal system to protect their own rights and interests. The brother had the most shares, 80%, so he was in charge and could not be stopped. He soon made the company's share price stable. Meanwhile, Sterling Group released a short video to show what their latest product looks like. The product itself came with its own black technology and was extremely useful, which made many consumers interested in it. For a while, Sterling Group's share price was going up. Chloe had got drunk at the company party and so didn't see the new product being shown to the public. So she didn't know that I was the host of the conference, Amelia, who had disappeared for almost a month. During this month, I led the R&D department to overcome the difficulties and did the perfect finishing work for the new products developed by Sterling Group. At the event to launch the new product, I was wearing a smart suit with a neat ponytail, holding a pen that could be used to turn the pages, and speaking in a way that made it sound like I knew what I was talking about. All while standing on a stage, I smiled and answered all the questions about the new product, which made everyone in the room like me. When Chloe finally got a grip, I was all over the media. Chloe had worked at Sterling's for 3 years and was much more helpful than when she first started. She immediately took a taxi to the office. I had expected this and waited for her in the president's office with my brother. Chloe pushed her way in, looked at me with a sneer, threw the newspaper down on the table with the news about my launch party on it, and said, "Amelia, aren't you going to explain what's going on right now?" I took a sip of my coffee and smiled at her. "Chloe, do you remember what I told you when we first met?" Chloe looked upset and didn't understand why I was asking. I smiled and stood up, taking a step towards her, and repeated exactly what I had said before. I said, "I want me to take good care of Junior's child. I'll give her some leftovers as a favor. That bastard actually wants to be on my level." When I finished, Chloe took a sharp breath and copied what I had done, aiming the vase at me to smash it. Her brother was sitting on the boss's chair and held her wrist tightly. She looked at her brother and cried out, "Brother," in a way that showed she was shocked and upset. "Why are you helping this woman too?" Leo laughed lightly and pushed her hand away. He pulled out the wet towel on the table and wiped his hand, looking disgusted. "Don't call me brother," he said. "A woman born of a mistress doesn't deserve to call me that." Looking at her red eyes, her brother kept laughing and said, "You know what I thought when I first saw you? I thought the same as Amelia, that horrible mother of yours, who clearly needed my mom's money to leave the mountains, but was so kind that she got into my dad's bed and didn't know how to give birth to you. She wasn't sick enough to need a kidney transplant, but she insisted on it to take my mom's chance to live. Amelia and I prayed all night in front of the ICU, asking you to let my mom live." Amelia was only 8 years old at the time, and her knees were covered in bruises. You, on the other hand, at the age of 18, were happy to step on my mother's bones to get to the throne and enjoy the shares that should have belonged to her. Why is that? Chloe was so scared of her brother that she eventually fell to the floor. I said, "You're a complete idiot. I can't believe you think we'd be nice to your mother's killer's daughter. We sang a song with you for a few years and you gave up all your shares in the company. Thanks a lot, Chloe." As soon as she said this, the police broke down the door and put cold handcuffs on Chloe's wrists. "Miss Chloe, someone has called the police. They say you might have poisoned and murdered your father. Please come with us." After that, they ignored Chloe and made her leave. Outside the door were all our entertainment reporters from the tabloids, and as soon as Chloe was pushed and shoved out the door, they took photos of her. There were so many photos that she couldn't escape. Chloe refused to confess to her crime, but the man who sold her the poison told her everything to make her look better. It wasn't until the results of her father's autopsy came out that she finally confessed. Because of this, All those old stories that had been kept secret in the Sterling family for more than 10 years were shared because of this criminal case. My mother sponsored a poor schoolgirl. The schoolgirl then had an affair with the husband of the woman who was sponsoring her. This led to my mother's death. My father took over my maternal grandfather's property. He also brought home his illegitimate daughter. He treated her the same as us. For a while, all the top stories on Twitter were about the Sterling family. Envy. Seeing is believing. Eating the Jedi. Junior on top. The Magpie's Nest was a very unkind nickname for that pair of dogs. The secret that had been kept for more than 10 years was revealed, but things had already changed a lot by then. After 3 years, I got to ride in the Sterling family's limousine and went to the Astor family's manor for the first time. I was wearing a pair of bracelets that had belonged to the Astor family, and Auntie Astor was holding me tightly in her arms. I could feel the warmth of a mother's heart for the first time in a long time. Aunt Astor stroked my hair and said, "Good boy, I've wronged you for all these years." I hugged Auntie Astor, who has been my mother's best friend since we were children, and who has watched me grow up. When I told her about my plan to get revenge for my mother's death, she agreed to help me without saying a word. After a few polite words, I went into the house with Aunt Astor. Ethan looked at me with a frown and a smile as he gave me my favorite snack. "Amelia, welcome home." Aunt Astor looked at me shyly and smiled, saying, "Go on, silly boy. This silly boy has been waiting for you for a long time." I felt red and jumped into Ethan's arms. Ethan stopped eating his snack and hugged me tightly. "The injustices in my heart will finally be resolved one by one. Everything will be just how I want it. The clouds will clear away and the sun will shine. I am going to walk towards my sunny day." There is more information. Later, Ethan and I went to see Chloe in prison. She was handcuffed, and there was a hint of surprise in her eyes when she saw Ethan, but when she saw me standing behind him, she immediately felt annoyed. "Amelia, what are you doing here? Haven't you seen enough of my jokes?" I moved closer to Ethan and kissed him on the cheek, showing that I wanted to do more. Ethan's ears went red when I kissed him, but he didn't move away. Chloe stopped moving. Every time she had tried to get close to Ethan before, he had pushed her away without moving. When she asked him why, Ethan just apologized and said that he was a fan of cleanliness and couldn't accept any kind of intimate contact right now. When Chloe saw the patient Ethan, who was in front of her, and saw me taking his arm, she was confused. Could it be that Ethan's cleanliness is just an excuse to dislike himself? Ethan looked at Chloe, who was staring at him, and frowned. "I gave you the key to the villa, but I gave it to Amelia. It was originally Amelia's mother's property, and you just took it on as a name. Now, it's back to its rightful owner." After that, I held Ethan's arm and smiled at Chloe, saying, "I also have to thank you for making Ethan interested in you in the first place. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known that the beautiful man's plan turned out to be so good. You don't know that Ethan and I are childhood friends, so how could you take him away with just a few words? Also, Aunt Astor didn't like you. That bracelet she gave you is a fake. It suits you." I lifted my wrist and shook the real heirloom pair at her with a smirk. "The real thing, but here it is." I watched Chloe, who was standing completely still. I smiled and waved to say goodbye. "By the way, I'd like to thank you for helping me with that old thing." "Thanks. You and your mom have committed so many sins in your life. You'll spend the rest of the decades inside on a sewing machine and atone for them." After that, I took Ethan's arm and turned to go. While I was walking, I said to myself, "It's really cold and gloomy here." Ethan said, feeling helpless, "You've had a cold stomach since you were a child, and you always ignore my advice to wear more clothes. Why don't you wear my jacket first?" Chloe sat down on a chair, looking a bit pale. The visiting hours were over, and she let the guards pull her up and put her back in the cell where she wouldn't see any light. Her love, her job and her life were all destroyed, or had she never truly owned anything she had acquired over the years? Then later, Ethan and I got married. Ethan spent 3 years in the enemy camp undercover, and to reward him for that, I decided it was time to give him a little reward. The reward was to give him a name, and then let him honestly sell himself to the Sterling Group as a permanent worker for the rest of his life. Married life was no different. We lived in a penthouse in the middle of the city. He always left work before I did, and every day when I came home, I saw him standing in the open kitchen. He was wearing a clean white shirt, ironed gray suit trousers and a pink apron tied around his waist. From the doorway, he looked strong and tall, with a narrow waist and long legs. When he saw me coming home, He would look up and smile at me first, his handsome face like a painting. Welcome home. Remember to wash your hands before you eat. This is the end of the full article.